Thanks for joining us on Power Lunch. This is Bloomberg Quint. I'm Harsha Subramaniam. The headlines at this hour. The Sensex and NIFTY recover from the day's low, led by a rally in real estate stocks. Vodafone Idea's 25,000 crore rights issue is open for subscription today. The management is confident the company will not need additional funds post this issue. Hindalco reports one person missing, 4 injured after the spillage of bauxite residue at its alumina plant in Jharkhand. The Supreme Court admits fresh evidence in the Rafale review petition, dismisses the government's objections over admissibility of the confidential documents. IMF has cut its global growth forecast for the current year to 3.3% from the earlier 3.5%. The figure is the lowest since the global financial crisis a decade ago. We'll get to all of that in a moment. A quick check on how the markets are faring this afternoon. Yatnan is here with a closer look on the markets.
Good afternoon, Harsha. The markets have been almost in the flat range for the last few minutes of trade. However, the advance decline ratio is slightly better, 3 advances for every 2 stocks declining. So the market breadth is quite good. What's moving trade is select pharma and auto stocks. Also, we have Tata Motors, which is the top gainer of the Nifty at this point in time, up 4%. Cipla, Wipro, Dr. Reddy's are the other stocks which are gaining traction in trade. On the flip side, Hindalco, as you mentioned, there is an issue at one of their units wherein few of the workers are reported dead. So Hindalco is down 2% after that news. HDFC Bank, after the block deal, is down 2%. Remember, Bloomberg Quint reported regarding the block deal, which was likely today, yesterday post the market hours. TCS and HDFC are the other stocks which are losing momentum in trade. Among the active securities, we have the likes of Yes Bank, Reliance Industries, as well as Idea Cellular, which are quite active in the future and option segment. And also Indiabull Real Estate, that is one stock which is gaining, for the last 5-6 trading sessions. Today also up another 11.5%.
Thank you for that. That's the markets for you. Portfolio managers, meanwhile, recovered from the losses incurred from the first 2 months of the year to post an average return of 6.5% in March. The performance was the best for over a year, but it failed to beat the benchmark. Sajid is here with a scorecard of portfolio managers thus far.
That's right. Harsha, if you look at the portfolio managers, entire 50 of them which we track closely, they were not able to meet on an average the return which was given by Sensex. Sensex gave a return of 7.82% in the month of March, and this happens to be the highest return since March 2016. So highest monthly return in 3 years for Sensex. From portfolio managers of 50 which we are tracking, the average return was 6.5% in the month of March, and in the last 15 months nearly 5 times they have been able to beat on an average the Sensex return, what we have found. Also, the other fact is that the returns have been much good in March. Many of them been able to meet individually the Sensex, but it's not a broad-based beat which we are seeing, because of the 50 we tracked, only 14 were able to beat Sensex, and others were in positive. 2 of them had negative returns, which include one of the Reliance wealth management.
This is for March alone.
March alone. I'm talking the March alone return, which is here. So 14 out of 50 have been able to beat the Sensex there. One of the interesting things which is coming out from this is the flows which were there, foreign flows. We saw nearly 40,000 crores of flows, net flows coming into the stock market in the month of March alone. We saw a chunk of that coming into portfolio managers to manage corporate FIIs, as we call it in their parlance. Nearly $660 million of money has come into 4 of 5 portfolio managers, which is ASK investment managers getting a chunk of it. Inam and ASK, Quantum, Karma and White Oak. These are some of the portfolio managers which handle a lot of corporate FI money which comes into the market, and they got a sizable chunk of more than 4,700 crores coming in the month of March alone.
Sajid, thank you for that. That's how portfolio managers have performed. March really coming to the rescue for most of them. Kotak Mahindra AMC has warned some of its fixed maturity plan investors that they may not receive the entire amount of redemption. While the warning has been sent to investors in 2 fixed maturity plans, the problem could be bigger. Around 50 FMPs or fixed maturity plans have exposure to the SL group. The larger question here is whether fund managers are still right in citing the standstill agreement that they have with the group in asking retail investors to take a hit. We'll get to that in a moment, but Neeraj is here to give us a context of what's really gone on with Kotak vis-a-vis its redemptions.
Yeah, so Harsha, I mean, 2 ways to look at it. One is, was the time for asking whether what's happened when the agreement was entered into first place? Definitely. Now that it's been entered into, I don't think there is a choice. The AMC houses and all of them who are party to this agreement have agreed that they will not sell any of the securities till the time the Z group or the SL group manages to sell off whatever assets or the stake in Z Entertainment and repay the money.
Right.
So they've entered into that, and therefore all that happens along the way are accidents which they have to live with. That is the simple and honest submission to this. Now, is this right? Is this wrong? Very debatable. Fund houses, when we spoke to them, when they entered into this agreement in the first place, they mentioned that if you look at it practically, we'll get the money because this would happen, so on and so forth, and therefore there's a right thing to do. At the other end, you could very well argue that FMPs, for example, taking the current example wherein the letters from Kotak which have gone to FMP investors suggests that the money will be paid as and when. You could even argue it's if and when, but as and when the corporate house does repay the money to them. Now, will it happen within a particular time frame? You don't know. Our FMP investors, some of them, if not all of them, and our guests might have a better understanding here, but some of the FMP investors definitely invest into this from a perspective of it being a mirror image of a FD, a slightly higher return, right?
Yep.
They do not get the return.
Correct.
At a time when they want. Now,
is it fair on them is a question.
Is it fair on them is a question.
That's a valid question.
That's a valid question, Mark.
Let's in fact ask that question to Dhiren Kumar, CEO at Value Research, who joins us on the phone line. Dhiren, thank you so much for joining. And firstly, this is the first time we've seen of an instance of, in this case, Kotak, an FMP not being able to honor its payment. At least it's saying we're only making a part payment. Do you see this? I mean, Z is one example of mutual funds having about what 8,000 to 9,000 crore exposure. There are other accidents also on the anvil. Do you see this becoming a bigger problem, particularly for mutual funds and retail investors having to bear the brunt of it?
Yeah, I don't see much of a problem in the open-end funds because most of these, problem securities are dominantly in the FMPs.
Correct.
And FMPs by their very design are something which is not vulnerable on a day-to-day basis because the problem hits you only when the maturity is due. And even by the design of FMP, the money may not vaporize, as was being told while introducing in the introduction that if and when. But, there is a collateral. And we have to, it's the reality of the Indian fixed income market that investors get, at least in the open-end fund, investors get instant liquidity while the underlying is dominantly illiquid or substantially illiquid. So, but in FMP, because the underlying, investors do not get liquidity on a day-to-day basis, it was fixed long time ago in 2008, December. Before that, FMP were far more vulnerable. So, and since then, recently there has been a provision has been made for side pocketing of such problem securities so that the investors' money do not vaporize. They don't. Anybody who is walking out of a fund never lose it forever if there is a possibility of any recovery or potential recovery in future. These ones, I think, in fact, the FMP which is maturing. In case of Kotak, they have already made a provision of a problem security, which is the IL&FS transportation network. They have already made 100% provision, and that is subject to NCLT resolution. But the two other securities, which is Edison's utility work and Conti Infra, which are the SL Group companies, against which they have they have the collateral of Z Entertainment. So I don't visualize that the fund company may not act in a half, but I don't see there will be delays. There may not be a full recovery, but I don't see that the money disappearing or vaporizing and investors being completely out of pocket on that front.
Okay.
Dhirendra, good afternoon. Neeraj here.
Good afternoon.
Just wondering, would you believe that? I mean, we are all blessed with hindsight because we didn't have to enter into the decision then. But would you believe that, as a result of this standstill agreement, investors in any of these plans that the mutual funds entered into, investors of those plans might eventually turn out to be better off than compared to what would have happened if the securities were sold off at a lower value and the NAVs would have taken a hit? It's a question of what is practical versus what is fit and proper on paper. Which side of the debate are you on?
No, I don't think it is a matter of debate. It is a matter of, whether it is doable. In case of fixed income securities held in a fund of this kind, where the underlying, in India, the fixed income market is configured in such a manner that you have they are either liquid or there is absolutely zero liquidity. We don't have a situation that, something can be sold at some price at any time. So in that sense, I don't think it is it was in the realm of, possibility. You possibly cannot sell securities, fixed income securities of this kind. These are effectively lending, personal lending, which is structured, which is only technically or legally or what looks like somebody is buying a security, but it is a one-to-one lending operation which is getting packaged as a security in a mutual fund, and it cannot be sold at free will.
Okay, just a broader, view on FMPs as well, Dhiren. FMPs, the way they were sold as rock-solid products, as an alternative to fixed deposits. Do you see investors getting increasingly wary after such instances?
No. FMPs, ever since 2008, if investors still think that, they were rock solid, I think they have very limited recall of the history. But FMPs have been decent product. If you look at the, most FMPs are yielding little more than fixed deposit and getting you the tax efficiency on a 3-year holding, it's a reasonable product. Now, if this accident, and when we look at, I was just looking at the history of all the all the maturing FMPs in the last 1 year, and the return looks nice. They are making it worthwhile for investors to consider it. But I think, at some point, investors should realize that, chasing a few extra percentage point and putting your principal at risk, this is something where investors must resist. And this is where I think, fund companies also should get this, that's a learning from this whole exercise. But I think, these learnings, you have to learn these lessons every 5-7 years all over again.
Okay.
Dhirendra, I just have one small question on this. This is the first of the quote-unquote accidents that has happened. There are probably some more on the way unless, of course, the SL Group reaches an agreement sooner rather than later. What would your messaging be to people who might get alarmed that, hey, what's happening? I'm not getting my full sum of money. Would you now tell people that, work with that expectation that it will happen, because it certainly seems to be on the way, and as and when the SL deal happens, some or all of it will come back into the accounts?
Yeah, I don't see that, investors' money will disappear. A good part of this money will come back because the underlying collateral is worthwhile. It has some worth, but it is not worth this, pain. A fixed income investor trying to optimize his return. He's not trying to maximize his return. Optimize his return. It just may not be worth it. I think fixed income investors should not take a chance. It is, why take a chance? You are getting, at best, you will get some 50 basis point more. Be with ultra short-term bond fund, which is configured conservatively. Your money will be on demand. And in good times, many a times there is over-engineering going on in the fixed income category. If you look at 16 kind of open-end funds, 16 kinds of open-end fixed income funds have been devised. Right. Besides that, you have these FMPs. Then you have the short-term FMPs. I really wonder that, we need this kind of complication. Investors need a absolutely safe overnight fund. They need a liquid fund. They need an ultra short-term fund. At best, a short-term fund, and that is the end of the story. one should not get venturesome to get 50 basis point, 1% more, taking a story for realizing some return very distant in future, because future is uncertain. And fixed income in India, the underlying problem prevails. The underlying is illiquid, and investors get instant liquidity. Some investors' behavior can itself be the biggest risk of a fund. It's not worth taking a chance. Be conservative, have your limited menu.
Sure. Dhiren, we'll leave it there. Thank you so much indeed for joining us with your perspective.
Thank you.
Dhiren Kumar from Value Research. Neeraj, thanks for joining in as well. It's an interesting debate. Many questions are still unanswered. Let's wait and see how this plays out. Spectrum auctions, meanwhile, in the future may not be as aggressive in the telecom sector as players are looking to shore up their bottom line. Vodafone Idea says it's not interested in bidding for more spectrum. The country's largest telecom operator says the consolidation in the telecom space has left the remaining players with adequate spectrum with no need to hoard airwaves. Listen in.
There's an offer document which says what are the purposes for which the funding can be utilized. First is 75% or roughly 18,750 crores is generally for repayment of debt or interest, and the balance 6,250 crores can be used for general corporate purposes. But if we look at the larger picture, we are saying that there is an overall funding requirement for the company, and this 25,000 enables the company to make investments, particularly in networks and in capacity and coverage, to be able to meet our strategic objectives and also to greatly improve the consumer experience. So from an offer document perspective, there's a certain statutory requirement that you specify, but I would say largely it is funding required to serve our overall strategy and the intent.
Also, if you see, there's a lot of talk in the investor and the analyst community that this fund infusion of 25,000 crore that the company is doing via rights issue won't be sufficient for the company, and it would need another fund infusion going forward for its capital expenditure plans and to contain its leverage ratio. So do you think that the company will actually require another fund infusion after this rights issue?
Absolutely not. So we're very confident that the rights issue plus the Indus monetization and the cash generation from operations is sufficient for us for a long haul. Add to that the possibilities of fiber monetization and incremental revenue uptake through getting more coverage and capacity and taking more customers to unlimited that Akshay was talking about. All this put together gives us a sufficient cash that we need for being able to fructify our strategy that we've talked about.
Companies are not interested for an auction given the financial health of the sector that we have seen. But from the government side and from Reliance, they are willing to do an auction to get the 5G spectrum. So what is your say here? And if at all government goes ahead with an auction, will Vodafone Idea look to participate if government does an auction for 5G spectrum?
So very clearly 5G is needed. Very clearly 5G, India should have a rollout of 5G happening at the right time. Right now, 5G ecosystem still is just evolving. The use cases India specific still have to be developed. We have sufficient spectrum available with Vodafone Idea to be able to create a lot more capacity than we have today. All the benefits of 5G that can today be utilized are already being brought forward to us. We are the last ones to deploy technology on 4G, and the later you buy, better you buy. So we're buying things like massive MIMO, TDD, and building lots of capacities to create the best possible customer experience already. As and when 5G ecosystem develops and the use cases come in, we will sure be able to play. Being a part of Vodafone Group, we have access to cutting edge technology and research of all kinds, and therefore are going to be all set to be able to take part and play a role in the 5G at the right time.
But also if I may add, you see, why do you need spectrum? You need spectrum, either there's a specific application with that technology, which as Balesh said is not there. Secondly, you need it for capacity. Now, really speaking, our traffic on broadband today was about 30 petabytes per day. There is a lot more capacity that we can create on the existing spectrum. And when we are giving you our capex guidance of March 20 or FY19 and 20, we would probably have utilized only half of the capacity potential of the spectrum. So really speaking, from a need perspective today, there is no need to buy more spectrum. As and when we need it, we'll definitely participate.
But what if the government goes ahead with an auction? Will you participate there?
So you see the need, you have to see this differently from the previous auctions. What always happened in the past were there were 10 operators.
Yes.
So if you did not participate and take spectrum in this auction, the next time you may not get it.
Yes.
We've had the last auction where the entire block of 700 megahertz is still unsold. And now the government is planning to sell 5G spectrum. The point is that today's spectrum adequately is available, the number of operators has reduced. So you can buy spectrum when you need it. You don't have to hoard it, if I may say. Okay. You just buy it when you need it.
Management of Vodafone Idea. Hindalco reports 1 person missing and 4 injured in a mishap at its alumina plant in Jharkhand. A wall of the pond that collects bauxite residue is said to have collapsed, causing a spillage. Nikki is standing by to tell us what happened and what this means for the company.
Well, thanks, Harsha. The stock has actually, fell as much as 3.5% in trade today, and now is actually down by 2% recovery inside. But then the incident which took place, that's the bauxite residue spillage, which has led to a wall collapsing, which has led to a temporary shutdown in one of its Muri alumina plant, which is located in Jharkhand. And this incident has led to a contractor missing and also 4 people injured. The company, as of now, in the statement which has been filed on the exchange, suggested that the operations have been suspended as they are still assessing the situation. They've said that in the preliminary investigation right now, they've not found any kind of material impact on the company's financials. But then we spoke to various number of analysts and the brokerages to understand whether this would have any impact. What Motilal Oswal typically says that the company has been using the best practice, which is using the filtering press to curb environmental hit. The overall production per se from this unit is 14% of Hindalco's alumina production. There seems to be a marginal impact, but then they would be keenly watching out of any regulatory backlashes, if any. And imitating the same view, Edelweiss Research also has suggested that more than the financial impact, it is actually an environmental, social, governance issue, which is expected to have a bearing in stock today. And Investec separately also suggests that even if the company goes ahead and shut down, they do not see any kind of hit coming in on the alloy production activity. However, the company to an extent will have to bear additional higher freight cost due to the distance between the aluminium smelter and feeds out there.
Nikki, thank you for that. That's Hindalco for you. The Supreme Court, meanwhile, has allowed fresh evidence to be taken on record in the Rafale petition. The 3-judge bench unanimously dismissed objections raised by the central government. Arpan Chaturvedi, who was present at the hearing, now joins us on the phone line with more details. Arpan, what was the basis on which the Supreme Court has decided to re-examine this case?
That's right, Harsha. So today's judgment is not on the main review petition, but on what the petitioners were arguing. They wanted certain fresh documents to be taken on record when the review petitions will be heard. Now, these documents are mainly from the media reports that has been done after the Rafale judgment has come out, and the government was opposing them because the government claimed privilege, and what the government stance was that these were stolen documents which pertain to national security, and that is why they claim privilege over it, and they should not be included as part of the court's hearing. Now, the petitioners had objected on this argument, saying that if the documents are already in public domain, there is no claim to privilege, and that the petitioners had argued that it makes no legal ground that documents which are already in public, only because if they are included in the court proceedings, will they hamper national security. So now the detailed judgment and what are the reasons and which arguments of the petitioners have been accepted, that we will get to know once the judgment is uploaded. But for now, the 3-judge bench has unanimously agreed and has said that these documents, when the review petition will be heard, will be part of the evidence, and they will consider arguments based on the fresh documents that has been found their way in the public through media reporting in the last 1 month. Now, when the review petitions will be heard, the specific date the court has said that will be informed on a later date.
Okay, Arpan, thank you so much for joining us with those details. Arpan Chaturvedi reporting on what the Supreme Court has said today. India goes to polls in less than 24 hours from now. Voters in 91 constituencies across 20 states will exercise their ballot tomorrow. Remember, the world's biggest election will be held over 7 phases and over 2 months. The latest opinion polls give the BJP a slim majority, the NDA that is. So what's working in the Modi government's favor? Let's find out from Sanjay Kumar, professor of the Center for Study of Developing Societies and co-director of LokNiti, one of the organizations that have also done an opinion poll. Before I get to Sanjay, let me just bring up that graphic on what the CSDS LokNiti poll has actually suggested. The CSDS poll gives the BJP anywhere between 263 to 283 seats, the Congress 115 to 135, and others 130 to 160. Now that's a large others factor as well. Sanjay, thank you so much for joining us. Take me through what your polls seem to suggest, and the fact that the NDA may have a slim chance, or rather a slim chance ahead of the UPA now.
Let me first begin by making a clarification that the data which you mentioned on the show is the projection for NDA and UPA, not for the BJP and Congress.
Fair point. Fair.
Second point, based on the survey, what we are trying to say, is this is the mood of the voters in the last week of March. In no way these projections should be seen as what we are trying to. We are not saying that this is going to be the final outcome on the 23rd of May. We should not forget that there is still 5 weeks to go for the last phase of polling. The last phase of polling takes place on the 19th of May. So the poll merely gives an indication that this is the mood of the people when the poll was conducted in the last week of March. And the mood of the people is very clear. NDA has a huge lead over UPA. Yes, BJP seems to be down by few seats, maybe 20, 30, 40, 50. We don't see BJP doing as well as they performed in 2014. Congress vote share has gone up. Congress is improving, but it is not improving to the extent of giving a kind of even an electoral, even a contest to BJP. Regional parties are holding strong in some of the states, and I can mention some of the states. It is the DMK in Tamil Nadu. It is Mamata Banerjee in West Bengal. Naveen Patnaik's party is very strong in Odisha. We have in Andhra, there is a contest between TDP and YSR Congress. The two national parties are not doing well in Andhra Pradesh. Similarly, if we look at the state of Telangana, even in Telangana, the regional party, which is TRS, is very strong. The contest is really happening in Uttar Pradesh, where BSP-SP alliance is in a direct fight with BJP, and there is a close competition between the two. This is the overall summary of what we get from the pre-poll survey, which was conducted in the last week of March.
Interesting that. I'll get to the specifics now. And you spoke about the regional players, which may have an extremely important role on who forms the government at the center. And you alluded to Naveen Patnaik, Mamata Banerjee, the TRS, and YSR Congress as well in Andhra Pradesh. Sanjay, you've done this for a very long time. Sitting today, one day ahead of the elections, would it be clear to you that we are in a sense headed for a coalition government that will be dependent on one or some of these players? Is that becoming clear to you?
No, I think at the moment it is very clear that we are headed for a coalition government. BJP on its own would find it extremely difficult to get a majority. The only question is, can NDA get a majority with the coalition which they have, the pre-poll coalition, or after the election will BJP or NDA would need more coalition partners? That's the only question. My own sense is that NDA might sail through. NDA would get a majority of its own with its pre-poll partners, and they may not need to look for new partners post-poll because they might fall short of the numbers. I don't see that happening, but yes, we are heading for a coalition government again after 2019 election.
Okay, the UP was one state where the BJP did exceedingly well in 2014. Not to mention even some of the other Hindi heartland states where they did really well. Are you sensing this, the damage for the BJP to happen in the Hindi heartland, or will it be the lack of allies in the south of the Vindhyas?
No, the BJP will, there will be setback for BJP in a Hindi heartland. And let me begin by UP. In UP, it's not that the BJP's vote share is coming down. We anticipate that BJP's vote share is what it was in 2014, but BJP would suffer damages only because SP and BSP has come together along with RLD. So the consolidation of anti-BJP votes with SP, BSP and RLD coming together is pushing back BJP in Uttar Pradesh, and I expect BJP may be losing something in the range of 30, 35, 40 seats in UP. Even in some other Hindi heartland state, and I can mention Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh, Chhattisgarh, though Gujarat is not Hindi heartland state, but in terms of electoral contest, I can take that example of Gujarat also. In these states, BJP has already peaked in 2014.
Right.
BJP had won all the seats in Rajasthan, all the seats in Gujarat, except for 2, all the seats in Madhya Pradesh, and also except 1 seat, it won all the seats in Chhattisgarh. So BJP will come down in all these states, but I don't expect BJP to be losing large number of seats in Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan, Chhattisgarh, Gujarat. I wouldn't be surprised if BJP, almost repeats the performance of 2014 in Gujarat, maybe lose 1 or 2 seats. Rajasthan, in spite of Congress managing to form a government in Rajasthan and Madhya Pradesh, BJP still has an upper hand over Congress, and I would say out of 25 seats in Rajasthan, BJP is all set to win maybe 17-18 seats, and Congress can at the best get 6-7 seats in Rajasthan. That's the story in Madhya Pradesh also. BJP has an upper hand over Congress, and Congress can at the best win 7-8 seats. Rest goes to BJP. So BJP is losing in these states, but not to the extent as Congress would have expected after winning the assembly elections in last year in December.
Okay, I have one final question, Sanjay. In 2014, it was very clear there was a momentum that was in favor of the BJP and in favor of Prime Minister Modi. You don't see too much evidence of that, at least not across the country. Would it be correct to say that this election will largely be, in a sense, many small state battles rather than one national battle with a national narrative?
See, even in 2014, then the momentum for BJP was not across the country. It was only in the Hindi heartland and a few other states, which includes Hindi heartland in the west. The BJP wave was missing in West Bengal, in Odisha, and if you travel to the southern state, BJP wave was missing except for Karnataka in the south. We witnessed similar kind of a trend even in 2019. It's not that BJP's wave, we see a BJP wave across the country. But yes, this is an election where nationalism is playing a much bigger role. The issue of leadership is playing a much bigger role compared to what we saw in 2014. So the elections, BJP is trying to pull the elections in the direction of national issues. BJP want to contest election on the national issues. Regional party and Congress want the election to be fought on what they call the real issues, or pushing BJP in the corner on the promises which they have made. So in some states, in states where regional parties are strong, we could see a contest between regional party and BJP. And in those states, there could be an election between regional party, what we are calling small elections taking place in the state. But in all those states where BJP is in direct contest against Congress BJP contest, I think it is more like a national election, and national issues are more dominant in these states compared to in the states where regional parties are very strong.
Sanjay Kumar, always a pleasure talking to you. Many thanks indeed for joining us with your perspective. Sanjay Kumar from the CSDS. Out of time on the show. Thank you so much for joining us on Lunch Today. Lots more coming up on Bloomberg.